Doctor, it's me, Owen. Look, I don't feel good. I need help. You see, I've just woken up from a dream. A weird dream. And in this dream, I watched this film on Mubi, the global art film streaming service. It was this 1996 screwball rom-com with Juliette Binoche and William Hurt. Paris, New York. The magic veil of love lifted. A happy ending. Confessions. Fuck. But the thing that got me, the sick bit, the real twisted bit, it was directed by Chantal Akerman. Yeah, that Chantal Akerman, the devotee of Jean-Luc Guy, the student of cinema who, rejecting the study of film, created an intensely personal cinema that was always political. That advocate of Deleuze and Guattari who translated their deterritorialization, their minority, to the language of cinema. The Akerman who created the cloistered, explosive electric shock of 1968, Saute ma vie, and yes, later, Jean Dillman, where the rhythms of domesticity and the cloying matrix of gender roles come explosively and murderously undone. Can't be, can it? A rom-com in New York with a happy ending. You've got to help me, Doc. I'm begging you.
You're listening to MoobTube, a podcast where we review a film that's on Mubi with a... It's like Dick and Dom in the Criterion basement out here.
The sex dungeon of Criterion. They do have a actual cupboard, you know. I've seen it.
Like an R. Kelly vibe.
He's still in there, actually.
Less said about that, the better. Yeah, we have a guest.
Yeah, move on. R. Kelly cast.
He's in a jail cell.
He is. He went from one club to another. Temporary period outside of it.
Anyway, we're joined this week, as you can probably tell, by Daniel Neofetou, friend of the pod, whose idea it was to review Couch in New York by Chantal Akerman.
Thanks,
what the hell, Daniel?
What the fuck? Mate, what the fuck?
I had no idea, actually. I had no idea that it was her attempt to make a mainstream film at all. I had no idea. My housemate, Fanny Paul Clinton, was noted writer and curator. He was like, "Do you want to watch the Chantal Akerman film on Mubi starring Juliette Binoche?" So I was like,
film, A Couch in New York, 1996. There we go.
Yeah, he said all that stuff. And he asked me if I wanted to watch it, and I was like, "Yeah, of course I do. I love Chantal Akerman and Juliette Binoche." Boy was I surprised by what ensued.
I was coloured by the fact that we talked about it as the Chantal Akerman rom-com, and I think that kind of predisposed me to kind of, I don't know, I wasn't going in cold turkey like you. I was going in pre-warned. I think, you know, I tripped over the kind of the tripwire already, and I knew an explosion was about to happen, whereas you just walked straight into it.
But it is like basically what you'd expect from a Chantal Akerman rom-com. As in, like, if Chantal Akerman tried to make a rom-com, this is
100%.
Yeah.
It is totally. It's not diverging from how she could. There's no other film she could have made. Like, I feel like if she was going to make this film, there's no other way she could have made it and still be this film, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Ralph? Like, what was your expectation? How did it match your reality?
Well, I tried to write some notes afterwards. My expectation was quite accurate to what it was, because Daniel said to me, it's like if Nora Ephron tried to do a sort of slow meditative art house film about
I should have said that just then.
I credited it to you.
You've been cited.
Citation to Dr. Daniel Neofetou.
Actually, wait a minute. What I actually said was, it's as wrong as if Nora Ephron had tried to make a slow meditative feminist film. Yeah. Like it doesn't work. It's not like Nora Ephron made a feminist. It goes as wrong as you would imagine. Yeah,
it's the same level of failure.
it is listed as one of Mubi's perfect failures, like Showgirls.
Yes, like Showgirls. And
but I don't even. I don't know.
Well, I don't think Showgirls is a perfect failure. I think Showgirls is a perfect film.
Film, yeah. It's a weird kind of species to put this film.
I think Showgirls is incredible. I enjoyed your podcast on it, but I just think it's really, really, really good film. Anyway, we're not talking about Showgirls, but I just love Showgirls.
There's quite an interesting list. Countess from Hong Kong by Charlie Chaplin, Southland Tales by Richard Kelly, who did Donnie Darko. Night Moves by Kelly Reichardt, which
is quite a good film. Isn't it just like a rain dance art house film?
Yeah, it's like really unremarkable. But
they might all be failures. There we go. Not perfect, but actually failures.
Yeah, but like a perfect failure is a
failure
film
needs to be so
outrageous.
It's not so bad as good. It's not that. It's something else.
I think with movie, it's just isn't it just films that. It's quite a capacious category. It can be films that just didn't do very well, unexpected,
like critical flops or commercial flops when they should have been good, or later received notoriety and kind of cult acclaim. Like
Southland Tales is a weird fucking film.
I'm gonna need to dig through this. But I mean, let's rein it in. Go, because I mean, let's talk about. So this film, just to kind of go over the kind of bare skeleton of this film, is a rom-com. It is set up as a doctor, Dr. Harrison, who's William Hurt. He's a uptight psychoanalyst who lives in a kind of sprawling Frasier-like apartment in New York. Very Frasier-like.
Actually, again, when we were watching it, we imagined if William Hurt was played by Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, that would be so. That's a film I would love.
How much better that would have been. Or just a fucking crossover, like Frasier the movie.
Conference.
Yeah,
Frasier the movie.
Frasier the
with
movie.
Higher production values.
This was Frasier the movie.
This is Frasier the movie.
Just same film,
I mean, Niles was actually the actor who plays Niles. I remember seeing him. He's in The Fisher King. If you remember, he's a limousine driver in The Fisher King.
Is he? David Hyde Pierce, great actor.
Yeah, David Hyde Pierce.
The greatest actor in Frasier by far.
Oh, by far. But he's
fucking incredible. And it jumps the shark when he's no longer allowed to play Niles anymore. When he gets with Daphne and Niles' lack is fulfilled, and Niles' whole
the void is
it just doesn't. He gives as they say in this film with the Lacan quote. Niles gives what he does not have to Daphne, and he loses his castration and is no longer an interesting character at all.
The castration is popped back, if that's possible. He receives like an anti-castration.
Return to sender.
So basically this film, you've got this uptight, Frasier-like psychoanalyst who lives in New York on his own. You then got on the other side of the pond in France, you've got a dancer, and she's a messy kind of heartbreaker. It's played by Juliette Binoche. They swap apartments in it.
Friend of the show
in MILF Binoche. She's our preferred MILF and the only MILF we'll talk about. But we have, so basically they swap apartments in the most 90s kind of fucking Deus Machina. It's just this I don't know if this ever was a thing when kind of two bourgeois people would just swap apartments, like a kind of exchange program. They don't meet, they just kind of fly out independently. So it's this fish out of water narrative where we see
I can imagine that in the LRB listings, to be honest.
LRB.
Yeah, and we see, very LRB actually, because you get this kind of like villa in Sardinia. You're not sure. Oh, is it like a swinging thing? I don't know. But then you've got, so she goes to New York, and we get this fish out water thing where she kind of explores his house. And actually, the domus, the home, is very important to Akerman. But we can talk about that in a bit. And then we get William Hurt, the doctor, who goes to her messy, very Parisian flat, and it's dirty, and there's knickers on the floor, and there's still wet footmarks on the floorboards, which seems impossible, to be honest, but whatever.
There's a leak, no?
There's a leak, but why would they still be?
They would have dried.
They would have dried. What, 14-hour flight? Like, you're looking at a day. They would have dried by then. And so the setup of the film is this kind of crossover. So the first thing we really learn in this film is that she is escaping, we learn, intense love affairs. Like, she's kind of trying to get away from it. He's escaping obsessive patients who keep calling him and intruding and, whatever, getting in his space.
So let's talk about in this film.
Pardon?
A lot of needy men, like
giving what they don't have. They're all giving what they don't have.
Yeah, they're seeking to, they're giving what they don't have, looking to have it filled. But tell me, let's talk about the setup of the film, because this crossover and these two people, like, exploring the other person's world. Let's talk about that. What was that? Was it good? It was fun, I think, but
I mean, I think that it's sort of it's so of a piece genre-wise, and yet so incongruous, and it misses. Like I do feel like Chantal Akerman could have, if she'd been allowed to. I really don't know like the premise of this, because I know that she used to trade diamond futures in order to fund her early film.
No, I think she got Hollywood funding for this, didn't she?
Yeah. But I mean, like, I feel like this film is like basically her trading diamond futures. Like, it's kind of
I think this was a payoff or something.
Cow,
someone made her do this.
Well, as we saw in that video, which my friend Kat Black, to name check, who sent me that video, just when I told her we were doing this.
The interview.
That video was at Chantal.
She goes into sort of Kanye style rant about like.
But before that, she says, but when she talks before the Kanye style rant, which is incredible, she talks about how she made it to impress her dad.
My parents came from Poland, all right, from very Orthodox family. Then they arrived in Brussels. Then I left for Paris. Then I left for New York. Then I went a little bit in Israel. Then I went a little bit there. So I don't feel that I belong at all. Sometimes it's hard because belonging can give you a kind of peacefulness. But
she sounds older than she looks here.
I don't belong.
You know?
I'm like an outcast. You know, one thing after another, there is an idea or the beginning of an idea, then I pursue it, and I do it. I even did a so-called commercial comedy for the couch in New York with Juliette Binoche and William Hurt. And I did it because Juliette asked me to write something for her.
That was her idea.
But I also did it because, I had a father. And he wanted to have a boy instead of me.
I made a film.
Oh. And I said to him, "Did you see what I did with your name?" So, well, that's not the same.
Look what you've done with my fucking name.
And then he said, "You're not making
What have you done?"
So I said, "Okay, I will do some money."
I will do
so
some money.
I will do some money.
But because of the problem of the production of William and Juliette.
First you get the money, then you get the power.
Very complicated and difficult film.
Then you get a woman.
And Juliette is all the time laughing, but she's cold as an ice cube.
It's true. I mean, High Life was the first film we reviewed on this podcast.
Everything is epidemic. She can laugh, but in fact she's very cold.
She's very cold.
Nothing went well. And also the journalists were very angry at me that suddenly I was playing in so-called the room of the big filmmaker. So they were angry at me. They want me to stay in the same place where I was. So they destroyed the film.
You should have stayed in the same place.
And then suddenly,
I don't think that's why they
realized the film was good. But that was too late.
And now we've got the context. So we know to the extent here she's trying to make a conventional film. There is a sense that in the setup of this film, we've got this fish out of water thing, and it plays into certain like tropes and stereotypes of like rom-coms, which is, like I said, the fish out of water, unusual environment, exploring each other's space on these clearly like soundstage sets. And it's kind of fun in a way. It's kind of got this burbling Seinfeld element to it. I don't know. It's like, this is something very sitcom-y about it, which naturally any rom-com will lean into.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, what is she saying there? Like, what did these two characters mean?
Well, content-wise, it's quite pedestrian, isn't it? As a rom-com, I mean, you could have the same. It's just formally, it's really subtly weird. That's the thing. It's just a bit off, and the form isn't that different from her other films that much. Like, I was reading this, I was skimming this essay I found in a book on Google Books before the podcast, and in the essay they compare News from Home, which is of course her famous films of static shots in New York as she reads letters to her mother, from when she went to New York as in the early 20s or late teens, I think. And then the Golden 80s, which is her kind of deconstruction of Hollywood musicals, set in a mall, which I've never seen.
I haven't seen that.
And then this film, and it argues that I don't buy the person's argument in this essay, but it argues that the two main claims of the essay are A Couch in New York, because it eschews classical Hollywood form, not as in shot reverse shots, all this other stuff. It kind of aspires to achieved a kind of Bazanian realism, like this
hyper real,
spectatorial,
because we're very aware we're watching the imitation, we're watching an imitation of a rom-com, and in my head I was watching it last night and it was quite late and I was like, is this I don't think it is. It's
not a satire, no, but when it's
satire of a send up of the rom-com.
It makes one claim that which I don't buy, which is like really that it's the long takes allow for kind of spectatorial autonomy in the way that normal the Hollywood films don't, with the shot reverse shot and all those kind of
these crash cuts and stuff like that. You don't have that.
It's literally mostly a lot of long takes, especially when they're walking around outside. But it's mostly shot through long takes. And then also he argues that the stunted delivery is defamiliarizing. And which I didn't think. I just thought it was a bit shit.
I think the script
that's just bad acting.
Good. I think it's bad acting, and the script
but they're not bad actors though. So it was.
But the effect of the film is defamiliarizing.
Defamiliarization
happens.
The relations between director and actor are like quite poor, and it's said in the interview with Akerman, she just did not. She just thought that there's obviously an acting style. A way I don't know how. I know she worked with Delphine Seyrig and she did do good stuff with But
Binoche can do that style really well though. Usually, but
I feel like she was cast against type here because she's playing too much of the Faye kind of.
She's playing Audrey Tattoo, isn't she? She's playing
she is. She's playing this proto Amelie character. And it's weird how Binoche seems there's too much kind of depth and soul in her eyes to be acting this kind of gratuitously, because one of the plot points that happens is when the Dr. Harriston is in her flat, he slowly absorbs and gets exposed to the kind of crossing paths of her tumultuous affairs. He reads her love letters, which is one of the first huge invasions of privacy and crossing of ethical boundaries that happens in this film. He's like, it's like going in an Airbnb and fucking raiding someone's knicker drawer, basically. And he goes through, reads all her letters. He speaks French.
Reading letters is worse than reading knicker drawers.
That's true. Okay, you've heard it here. I'd like to, ladies and gentlemen of the court.
It's definitely worse. One form of an invasion of privacy.
That's what I said when I got caught. And I was like, well, I didn't read their letters, did I? Fucking hell, Judge. But she does that. So she invades his. This is what one of the themes of this film. If we want to talk about themes, is this. In people kind of there's this meshing together and this absorption of people's lives and co-penetrating of each other's lives, whether it's being a therapist where by nature you are absorbing somebody else's pain and processing it, and that happens. Whereas in New York, on the other side of the pond, the dancer, Juliette Binoche, she's because his patients are so needy, New Yorkie, kind of I need to talk to my shrink. They burst into the flat, lay down on his couch and start talking to her. So she's kind of inadvertently becomes a therapist and she goes along with it. And she slowly starts actually actively responding to Dr. Harrison's clients, and she kind of becomes or play acts as a therapist. And she seems to have some temporary success because she feels the need of these men to be listened to, because presumably her style is very different because she's not a trained analyst, right? She's just kind of dabbing their head with a towel and kind of being encouraging and providing this maternal or female kind of figure. But that's it. So there's these crossing of they're absorbing each other's lives and stepping over their boundaries, which is what happens when you actually stay in someone else's house. Like when you go to an Airbnb or whatever, it's like there's an element of voyeurism because you're in someone else's space. But most of us, it's just a temporary voyeurism because you're like, oh, they've got some shit in the cupboard.
Yeah, I think I've only ever been to Airbnbs which are, apart from the ones where someone's letting out a room and staying there, which are just bought to be Airbnbs because they're always so clean. And
they're
some
just
of them are.
guest houses.
yeah,
Early days of Airbnb, they were much more like actually someone's house with loads of shit out. I used to house sit as well, so and I've house sat a lot, and often I've done it for like up to 6 months before, and there you really are. There's like you're pulled by this temptation to be like, well, fuck it, who's going to notice if I go? And I didn't Binoche it, or Harrison it. I hurt it. I kept my ethical barrier, and I was like, "No, I'm not actually going to go through that shit."
Good for you, Owen.
Good for you. But what happened? What is Akerman saying? Is there anything of import about this kind of people crossing each other's personal space? What is that about?
I think Akerman's work is always about intimacy, or the sort of obstacle to intimacy. I mean, the main points I had from this film were like, the things this film shares with other Akerman work is like a sensitivity to interiors, a deeply felt sense of longing, and also something about just the presence of the dog and how the dog, the sort of involuntary Edgard, how legendary and adorable the dog is felt. I can't actually think of like an Akerman film with a dog in it, but there's a spirit of the dog in much of her work. The presence, but the longing. I mean, I did find there's something about like pop cultural narratives. Like sometimes the things that move you in films are not always like the most like well-made films. Sometimes something quite trashy or simple can elicit an emotion,
can move you because they manipulate your emotions.
Yeah, and I didn't burst into tears at this film, but there was like for the sort of latter half of it, this sense of pervasive like longing, like everyone in the film really kind of needing someone and not getting them, and then
everyone needed something.
The central narrative where these two people were like so close to each other, and that feeling, that long period of time where he's like about to say that he is Harrison rather than he calls himself John Wire because he's on the phone to her and he sees the wire, and John is a very common first name. So he plays up this act of pretending to be a one of the Analazans, and she doesn't recognize him as who he is, so it works perfectly. But he keeps wanting to say who he is, and it's not until the very end of the film.
Where they have this the denouement where they kind of finally meet in her Paris apartment, and it's a
really strange scene, a really bizarre. That was the most bizarre.
They stand on either side of a hedge, like they're on Zoom or something.
Yeah, that's very bizarre. And also the scene where the dog gets in the water. That was a very bizarre scene as well.
Oh yeah,
because why did they get in? Yeah, it's very like unmotivated behaviour.
There's a lot
a bit like Hausu, a bit like in Hausu.
Yeah,
as a callback to my last appearance. People doing weird things.
Whatever it was. People doing weird things with no real justification, explanation. Especially, there's many points in this film that could be solved where the people don't follow the normal rules of conversation. So the reason Dr. Harrison play acts as a patient is because he goes to the apartment. Juliette Binoche has her best mate who lives in New York is acting as a
who was an awful actress. I don't know who the fuck she was, but she's
the English woman. Yeah, she was really atrocious.
One of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my life.
Oh God, yeah, painful.
So bad. sorry, actors. One of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life.
No, truly. But she acts as the secretary, doesn't she? So she answers the door and says, "Oh well, Dr. So-and-so can't see you right now." And he has this perfect moment to say, "Well, actually, this is my fucking house. I'm Dr. Harrison." But there's that classic kind of rom-com thing where to say the obvious thing like "this is my fucking house," he's like, "Oh, can't get a word in," and then walks off and plots this elaborate thing about, "Oh, I'm actually just going to go along with it and pretend to be her client."
But that's nothing. I also feel that even in a more conventional rom-com, that wouldn't fly. I think that would be too much of a massive plot hole. I think something about the kind of alienation effect that she employs, which makes it, when you're watching it experientially, quite annoying. Like for me anyway, I found it quite annoying. Like I didn't, but not in an alienating way. It's just a bit annoying. Actually, it does allow for these like the suspension of disbelief, because I wasn't annoyed because of the plot holes. I was annoyed because it was pissing me off. as a whole.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. You were talking about earlier about like Shklovsky and like defamiliarization, and there is an element of that, but it's not intentional, right?
It's more Brechtian than Shklovsky.
Okay, we're going for.
Well, no, because I mean, I was talking about.
Let's get to the real details here.
Well, no, because I mean, like, of course,
explain yourself. Yeah.
Well, Shklovsky is or just all about.
He's talking about othering. He's talking about othering. He's changing the
othering, but also with Shklovsky, there's the whole idea of it's a kind of intimacy. It's a kind of othering through intimacy. While of course with Brecht, it's a kind of othering through distance, I guess.
That can be said. Yeah. I know. I see what you mean. And a distance is produced, but a distance I don't think is intentional. I think Akerman is trying her fucking best, but she's constrained by her own brilliant mind. And what we get these kind of like we get these bits of friendly fire, which is where occasionally she does hit top Akerman form. Like the observations of them moving around each other's house. I quite enjoyed Dr. Harrison when he's laying on the bed reading through her letters, and then he gets this intrusion. And the best part of the film is where I think it's Jean, the character, breaks in, who's her lover, and he punches Dr. Harrison in the fucking face, knocks him out. And then Dr. Harrison, because he's a therapist, he can't help it. He just starts listening to this man's grievances. And again, he doesn't have the opportunity because he's the therapist, I guess. He doesn't say what should be said, which is because Jean punches him because he's like, "You're in my fucking girlfriend's house," which is a fair, complaint. Yeah. And rather, he never really explains why he's there. He's like, "Oh, I don't know her," but then never adds any context.
It's like,
what the fuck does that mean? You don't know her. You're in her fucking house. But he then listens to Jean's complaints, and Jean kind of just like they have a therapy sesh, and it's quite a funny.
No, quite prescient, really, because he does end up fucking her at the end.
He does actually. What a fucking what they call
he's angry, but in anticipation.
What a player! To be honest,
he is vindicated. He is vindicated by the end.
He is vindicated. He's the ultimate player. I'll take it back. Actually, he's just playing this long game. But yeah, it's this film is full of lots of these like little elements, I guess, that are quite Akerman-y. And they focus on like domestic routine. Well, they focus on like here. It's the total disruption of domestic routines. Whereas you look at Somerville or Jean Dielman, you've got domestic routines that slowly unravel, right? In Jean Dielman, it's like the overboiled potatoes or whatever. Her domestic routine and habitus kind of slowly unravels to the point where she murders a client, John. And then in Somerville, you've got and in Somerville, you've got.
It ruins the whole film, doesn't it? Knowing
it
that.
Does. I didn't when I first saw that.
Why would you watch Jean Dielman now? You know the twist.
It's such a fucking boring film that you would like if you knew that. I didn't know when I saw that film. I didn't know that was the ending, and it really I
think proved it. It does hit. It hits different.
I think I already knew. I thought it was incredible.
So
I saw it on 35mm, mate. The only way.
Real talk. Real city-ass cinema.
Listen, I'm a Akerman fan.
None of this movie shit.
I enjoy just
I was there.
Yeah, I don't. Has anyone? I don't want to derail the conversation, although I do. Has anyone else seen her other narrative films? Because I've actually only seen.
Yes,
I've seen. Yeah. Go on, Ralph, because I haven't. I've only seen like those her more prominent.
What's it called? That one. There's a really good one called Young Girl in Brussels.
Is it Portrait of a Young Girl at the End of the 60s in Brussels?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What's it like?
Good. Yeah, it's very beautiful. There's an amazing scene where there's this young girl and she's dancing with another girl at a party, and she's like obviously like got a crush on this other girl. And there's this nice kind of like bossa nova track playing, I think, and then the song ends and like the girl goes off into the arms of like a handsome young Belgian lad, and it's Screaming Jay Hawkins. It's a man. It's not Screaming Jay Hawkins, is it? James Brown. That song. It's a man's world.
I know. So yeah, this moment of longing almost comes to fruition. And
and it's all in one take, and it's a really, really amazing scene.
Okay, maybe
kind of the best bit of the film. It is a bit good. It's a good film. I mean, Je tu il elle is like that's probably my favorite Akerman film, and that's not really narrative, really, but it's.
I love Somerville. Somerville is great. That was her first work.
The short film where they blow everything up.
Film. which
I've
blows
seen
up the
that one.
house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen that one, and I've seen John Dielman, and I've seen News from Home, and I've seen No Home Movie. I think that might be it.
Have you seen
News
Parisian,
from
New
Home's
York?
good,
It's great,
but very sad, very like longing.
Yeah. And No Home Movie is fucking amazing, obviously. But
well, there we go. We've got this running thread.
haven't
This
seen
red
that.
no, but I
thread
mean,
through the film
yeah,
of
but
longing,
she's done a bunch of narrative films, and I haven't seen any of them. So I was wondering if, so a portrait of a young girl at the end of the 60s in Brussels. Like, what is the? How is it formally similar to A Couch in New York?
Good question.
I mean, in terms of how scenes are shot, yes.
Yeah.
But in terms of like directing, no. Like the directing is much better in Portrait.
Yeah, because I feel like with Couch in New York, she doesn't get the best out of characters.
I expected something like more weird in like an interesting way. It was just
even though it's profoundly weird. That's the problem. It's just profoundly weird. It's a very strange,
not in an intentioned way. It's kind of weird because
I wouldn't say profoundly weird. I would just say it's like sort of weird.
I think it is. I think
Maya Deren.
I thought it was very weird. Like I thought.
Like it felt like a dream.
Not even that. No, not like no, because like
it felt like a play.
But Mulholland Drive feels like a dream. I mean, that's
yeah.
Like it does feel like it doesn't feel like a dream. But it is because that kind of weird stunted acting. It's something that, like, for instance, in a kind of rom-com tropes, it's something that like Hal Hartley, for instance, does really, really well. Like really, really well. And it's hard to pinpoint why it's so weird, but
yeah, I think there was something about, we're very much in media res here. We're right in the midst of things. There's no. And like I say, it feels like a stage play, partly because it's on this sound stage, and it feels like you're waiting for that canned laughter at the right moments.
Yeah,
and there's this like weird. It's almost like this film within a film. It's like the bit of a film you'd see within a film within a film, or something.
Yeah, that's true.
It's got the energy of that. Yeah, but there is this overall weirdness about it.
But also, as I just thought, there's the fact that she was making it as a commercial film to make money implies that she thought it was really accessible.
Who else would you like to see? I'm going to ask you both. Who would you like to see make a rom-com? Like, living or dead? It's an art house director, like received art house director. They've got to make a rom-com. Go.
Bresson.
I mean, no, the Thingy's a rom-com. What's it called?
Devil Probably.
No, the donkey film. The incredible film. Hazard Balthazar. Yeah.
That's a rom-com.
Amazing film. Yeah. Hazard Balthazar is a rom-com. That's another thing.
I mean, Nostalgia by Tarkovsky is kind of a rom-com.
Oh, fuck off. There's a context in Russia where it's like, brilliant.
That's always the thing with it's just a cultural thing, isn't it?
It's a cultural thing. I'd like to see Abbas Kiarostami do a rom-com New York. That would actually be quite good, to be honest.
Well, he did do a rom-com with Juliette Binoche.
Oh, fuck, he did!
It was called Certified Copy.
It's fucking shit.
It's so bad. I forgot.
It was such a bad film. That film was whack. Oh my god, that film was so shit.
My dad really loves that film. He finds it
so
really
Juliette Binoche makes
she falls in love with the writer.
She's an enabler. She helps these art house people try and make loads of money.
And Chocolat with Johnny Depp as well.
That's not made by an art house maker.
No, it's not. But you know what I mean? It's crossing into this rom-com territory because it's not rom-com.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure she made a bunch of those mainstream films.
Yeah. For a while, she's trying to make a buck, isn't she?
Have you seen her Instagram?
No.
She does these funny impressions under the hashtag crazy Juju Bibi.
Oh no, you said they're a bit problematic, right? They're a little bit.
I think some of them are a bit racist.
Juju Bibi.
Oh, take the phones away from. Fuck, man. Juju Bibi, and she's doing like these kind of accents that, like, yeah, probably in like a dinner party in like Paris in like 1993, and they've just done like some lines off the back of like an oyster shell.
I've got some respect
just
for
like,
that.
listen
You
to
know,
my-
if you're famous enough that you don't even notice that you do stuff on Instagram that you would only do to a close group of friends, you know,
We're at
respect.
a dinner party.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard question. Vertov, Ziga Vertov.
No, that would be quite something.
That would be amazing. He would be. He'd be like one of those like cinematographer bros now if he was alive. Just really,
Yeah, he would. Yeah,
all black. He'd like have like fucking all black. He would
He's
just
doing
take
Black Magic
photos of his-
demos on YouTube.
Yeah,
I-
Black Magic demos on YouTube. He 100% would, wouldn't he? Fucking crazy.
Bergman did rom-coms. Summer with Monica. That was quite good.
yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Roma is the art house rom-com filmmaker, and the greatest Romer. Yeah, he is like he's made the best rom-coms ever made.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, Love in the Afternoon is the favorite rom-com, my favorite rom-com ever made, remade by Chris Rock and Louis C.K. As the film I Love My Wife.
Really?
It's an actual remake of the Eric Romer film Love in the Afternoon, which is
Holy shit. We maybe need to watch
Yeah.
that. Off the books, we need to watch that.
That's a perfect failure, surely. Movie, go on.
Yeah.
So, Couch in New York. Finishing thoughts, everyone.
It was not that good.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to see a film
Why?
a film out of water. Which
A
is-
film
Film
out of
out of water,
water.
indeed, yeah.
This film is so far up water, it's fucking flapping on the beach. Gasping for air, desperately. Gasping for the sweet embrace of death.
On that note,
Yeah, I just ran out of gin.
thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you, Daniel, for
ciao.
joining us.
Cheers, Dan.
Thanks.
Seven.
Cheers.
Stay safe. What was it? Hands,
Face.
Hands, face, space. Hands, face,
Have
space.
face. Save face. Save
right.
race.